All right, welcome everyone. Today, we're going to walk through the final recommendation for Project Helios. We started this whole journey with a truly massive vision, but after a really deep dive feasibility study, we've honed it into something much, much sharper. It's a proposal that's smarter, faster, and maybe most importantly, a whole lot more financeable. So, let's get into it.
So here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll quickly touch on the original proposal. Then, I'll show you exactly why this new version is a much smarter investment, and how it still delivers an incredibly competitive energy price. After that, we'll look at the accelerated timeline and wrap things up with our final, data-driven recommendation.
So, Project Helios has always been about thinking big, right? Delivering baseload space solar power on a scale that could literally change the world. And our feasibility study, it confirmed it's all technically possible. But it also presented us with a really critical choice. Do we stick with that raw, massive ambition, or do we take a more pragmatic, strategic path to get there?
And that choice? Well, it's laid out right here. On one side, you've got the original vision, a full petawatt plan. We're talking 100 million satellites deployed over 20 years. On the other side is our optimized proposal. Half the power, half the satellites, but deployed in a super focused 10-year window. This is the pragmatic, financeable, and frankly much faster path forward. Okay, let's talk about the money, because this is where things get really interesting. Now, I want to be crystal clear about something. This is not a downgrade. This is about being fiscally intelligent. It's about reducing our capital exposure while making absolutely sure this project is not just viable, but primed for huge success. I mean, just look at the impact on the top-line number. The original plan was projected to cost $2.1 trillion. Our proposed path brings that all the way down to $1.25 trillion. That's a reduction of $850 billion in upfront capital. That is a staggering difference. So, you're probably asking, where do all those savings come from? Well, as this table shows, it's all about logically scaling our variable costs. You'll notice R&D stays put at $30 billion. The core innovation is exactly the same. But then you look down the list. The factory cost drops by $160 billion, O&M is down by $240 billion. We're just scaling everything to the new, more focused scope. It's a direct, sensible, and completely logical reduction right across the board. And this brings us to another absolutely crucial point for financing. That capital-intensive deployment phase for the original plan, it would have required around $200 billion per year at its peak. This optimized proposal brings that peak annual funding requirement down to a much more manageable $150 billion. From a cash flow perspective, this makes the whole thing so much easier to get off the ground.
So, we're saving a ton of money. But what about the core promise? With a lower investment, can we still deliver on those revolutionary energy prices? The answer is a resounding yes. Let's see how this investment translates into the final price of the energy we're going to deliver. And here's the headline number you've been waiting for. The levelized cost of energy for our half petawatt version is just 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Let that sink in. Even at half the scale, this price point is completely transformational for the entire global energy market.
This slide, well, it really says it all, doesn't it? It puts our competitive advantage in stark relief. I mean, look at where we stand. At 1 cent per kilowatt hour, we are 4 to 10 times cheaper than coal. We're 5 to 15 times cheaper than terrestrial solar, especially when you factor in the cost of storage. This isn't just being competitive, this is creating a whole new category.
Now, in the spirit of full transparency, this cost is slightly higher than the original plan's projection of 0.8 cents. That tiny increase is just because we're spreading those fixed costs, like R&D, over half the total energy output. Honestly, we see this as an exceptionally minor and totally acceptable trade-off for the enormous gain in financial viability and project speed.
And speaking of speed, that brings us to our next huge advantage. This isn't just a more affordable plan, it's a faster plan. We're accelerating our timeline to generating our very first revenue and ultimately reaching full operational capacity.
So here's how it plays out. After 3 years of setup, we deliver first power to the grid in year 4. That's a full year ahead of the original schedule. Then we double that output in year 5, and we hit our full half a petawatt deployment by year 13. Our target to be fully operational, 2039. It's an aggressive but completely achievable timeline.
Okay, let's bring it all home. When you take all this data and you put the two plans side by side, the choice, well, it becomes incredibly clear. Just look at this. The proposed plan costs $850 billion less.
It requires less funding each and every year. We get power online a year earlier, and we reach full deployment in half the time. And crucially, we reduce our operational risk by managing 50 million fewer satellites in space. On every single key business metric, as you can see right here, the half-petawatt plan is the undeniable winner.
And so, our official recommendation, echoing the conclusion of our project lead, is this. We need to fund the 0.5 petawatt variant as our baseline. Now, this isn't abandoning the 1 petawatt goal. Not at all. Think of it as a strategic first phase. We build this, we operate it successfully for a decade, and then, from a position of incredible strength and proven success, we can make the decision to double the swarm.
The conclusion here is really simple. We have a plan that is faster, far more financeable, and doesn't compromise the technical integrity or the core promise of this project one bit. The path forward is clear. So the only question left for us is, are we ready to power the future?